Um,
5 o'clock.
I've got, 5 o'clock. Thanks, wow. Looks like we've got everybody here. So first item is, anyone have any issues with the minutes? They're actually from 3/11. This says 3/8, but I think they were 3/11 minutes the last meeting. Pretty sure. 3/16? No.
Will we accept those minutes?
Anyone have any issues with the minutes? Any changes? Any input? Motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
First, second, okay. Thank you. So next meeting, the last meeting I had asked if anyone had any favored either the 14th of April or the 24th of April for another additional meeting to go over code changes. I didn't get any responses, so at this point, 4/17 is kind of out. So I set the meeting for 4/24, Wednesday at 4:30.
I won't be here, but
Okay.
you'll do well without me.
Well, if, I'll distribute stuff and any input you have, just shoot it in.
Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday.
It is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Going forward, if into the summer, Wednesday, we're not going to do, right?
What time again, Bill?
My plan at this point, so a meeting on the 24th, then we have our regular meeting on May 13th. And I hope over the 24th and the 13th to be done reviewing code sections. So that's the plan.
What time on the 24th, Bill? I'm sorry.
24th is 4:30.
Thank you.
I think we're coming up on our 3 months, aren't we?
3 months is the 5th, the 5th or 6th of May. So actually I think they're discussing, we're going before the Suffolk County Planning Commission on May 1st for an extension. We'll see how that goes. Let's see. So other correspondence, a lot going on since the last meeting. First thing I should point out is we have a new member. He's not certified yet or whatever the next step is, but Skylar Needham. Skylar, who's here tonight. Skylar's a graduate of Webb Institute and worked in various positions as a marine architect and engineer. Now one of the co-managers of Tacos Harbor Marina and John's nephew, which counts. So I think this will make Skylar be a great addition, and thanks for volunteering. Have you met people up here?
I see familiar faces, and there's some people I know, and
That's Alaretto on the end, and James Eklund, Pat Williamson, Tom Field, and Bill Garrity.
And Mark.
And Mark, sorry, Mark. Yeah, that guy, there he is. Let's see. So last meeting, I had distributed a notice from the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development with regards to aquacultural leases. And we have till May 6th to make any response to that. Is anyone willing to sit down and figure out the locations of all the sites that they set out in the notice so we can figure out whether they have any impact on Shelter Island waters? There's a whole list of lat longs in there.
There should be a corresponding map with that as well.
There was.
Well, I didn't see the map.
There usually.
Usually, I think in the notice it stipulates the township as well, not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in that program, the Suffolk County Aquaculture. So they have a website and have an interactive map that will show you exactly the numbers of where the leases are. So if you wanted to, you could look at the public notice and you'll see that the people applied for three leases So it's kind of like their choice, 1, 2, and and then you can look at that corresponding numbers to the map, and then the procedure is they have there's a review board, and then they approve either one or all of those or none of those spaces, and then the applicant chooses or tells you, they say, okay, I want my first choice, or I want this lease that's available, and then that's the one that they get assigned to. But it's very easy to see which leases are available or which ones they're applying to with this interactive map. And actually, you could probably pull it up right now if you wanted to. Christina, if you wanted to show it to some, I don't know what kind of time you have.
I don't know what.
They have no time.
But it's anyway.
No, but I want it, Bill. It just-
Bill, I think I have your, I can send you the link to where that map is, and it's not hard to.
All right.
They got big red squares, and you can see it.
Yeah, that's what I remember the last time it came out. It was
Yeah, if you could send that to the Waterways, the town email, be great.
I don't know if this would be helpful at all, but there are also a number of organizations that are monitoring this, especially from the recreational boating side,
Mhm.
because the review board seems to not take any of that into account. And that's what has triggered a number of the lawsuits associated with this that have come down. So, I mean, there's some people I can put you in touch with if you want that perspective.
I'm just really, I remember Orient Point Yacht Club, if that's what it's called.
Yeah.
They had an issue with it, but I'm just curious to see if there's anything that impacts Shelter Island waters,
There's a number of leases that have been approved within our jurisdiction for several years, numbers of years, right? How long are leases for? For 5 years?
10 years.
10 years, right? So maybe some of those are up for renewal. I'm not quite sure what the timeline is. But there's a number of them, at least 2 that I know for sure that have been active within our jurisdiction that obviously never pose any type of issue whatsoever because don't really know they exist and don't have much of a problem with them. One of those was leased by a resident of Shelter Island. The other one is leased by a couple, I believe they're residents of Southwold Town. I'm not sure of Hamlet, but somewhere up there. And so they run their business from over there.
Yeah, I don't know how many are leased and not being actually utilized at the moment.
At least one of them now is not being utilized.
He gave that up.
Right, yeah, I think that was part of this, right, but he was a resident here at least.
They're pretty significant areas and they have pretty significant potential impact if you're not paying a lot of attention.
Great benefit as well, that they, oysters filter the water.
Oh,
And then also
yeah.
economically, they have a big impact. So, there's a plus side to it. I know that some people think that there's not enough room for everybody to use the waterways. And they think that, if you just have a yacht and you're sailing around, that you can't, 10 acres here or there gets in your way and you can't enjoy the bays because there are a few oyster farmers, cleaning up the water while, you're just yachting and having cocktails and everything else, so.
Hey, if I'm on my yacht and I hit one of your cages and I isn't that?
That's pollution.
That's an issue.
Excuse me, Bill. Bill, I think the Shelter Island Yacht Club weighed in on this several years ago because of the impact it might have on some of the cruising or racing. And the Devon Yacht Club had a tremendous
That's an event.
issue. And I know that our Commodore wrote a supporting letter on behalf of the Devon Yacht Club. So someone may want to, check in with what have any opinion on and what they're doing.
Well,
Just
So
a
from the-
suggestion.
the response time is May 6th. They may want to let them know that if they're not aware of it. I imagine they are. From the WMAC's perspective, I think, we support, I think, recreational and use of the water as well as aquaculture. So I'm just trying to get the data to see what is out there and try to figure out what kind of impacts it could have.
That's the reason why all these activities can't coexist, but you have to balance
Yep,
the interests.
it's all about. Next item under correspondence is Bert, I have you down, Bert Waif, request to change a boat at W 3565. We don't have an application at this point, and I'm not sure what exactly is going on with that application. This is where you had a special permit also for the 1 year at W 3565, right? You had a special use permit to have a dock at that mooring?
Yeah, I don't, was there a change? I don't know if there was a change, but there was,
It was, what I was,
I guess I have a special, there was when there was a 3-year thing, I guess every August or so, I guess when I was renewing, the town board looked at that and approved
Right, you have.
year by year.
Yeah, for that
I
one.
don't know if I'm changing it. I don't know what was,
You
So-
requested to change the boat that's assigned to, what is it,
3565.
Right, from the work boat, from the barge.
oh, okay, yes,
To the
to a smaller
aluminum
boat, right.
Right, to the aluminum boat.
Okay.
Right.
But that's the same mooring that you had a 1-year special permit
Right.
granted by the town, directed by the town board. It was a mystery to all of us because we were never part of that.
Oh, okay.
So we all learned about it recently when you
Okay.
asked to extend it, but it expired last August
Okay,
for the dock. So the dock should no longer be there.
gotcha.
And so we just you need to let us know what you intend to do as far as you've got a dock there that shouldn't be there at this point, and you want to change the boat that's there
Right.
to a smaller boat. And then I don't know whether that boat is assigned to another mooring that you have, or,
No, I don't think so.
well, if you can just figure that all out and then come to us and tell us what you want to do, then we can give you some sort of response.
How about I do nothing? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Well, I think you at least have to move that dock off that.
Right,
I'm
regardless,
not moving the dock. I mean, you can write me up on a ticket, but I'll apply I'll go to the town board and get the permit, but I'm not moving it.
Okay, well, the special
You know,
permit,
they'll grant it to me. I'll go and ask them again.
the town board, just so you know, the
But I
special,
know,
the
what's that?
special permit was in violation of about 3 sections of the mooring code. So it would be good if we had an opportunity to see what you wanted to do so we could determine whether it makes any sense under the code.
Well, the town board thought it would make sense for years.
Okay, well, then maybe you should just go
Maybe I
directly
should
to
go
the town board. Yeah, we should do that.
Okay. So,
Okay. When you guys can figure it out.
because it's been approved for a number of years, and every year that it did get. So I don't know why it didn't make the agenda last time, the town board. I guess I would think that had to do with the renewal process. To get a renewal for the warrant.
right, so for
I think it kind of
special
slipped through
permits,
the.
special permits don't work that way, right? The first time it was issued, which was 2 years ago, it was issued to you, we're notified. A year later, August of 22, excuse me. It was brought up again, it was renewed again at that point, and so it expired in August of 23 this year. So somehow in there, and this is an issue for everybody in general, right? Like if there's a special permit issue, somebody's gotta know about it, somebody's gotta pay attention to it, somebody's gotta remember when it expires, and presumably somebody should notify the applicant and say this is expiring. If you wanna renew it, you gotta come in and make your case again, or so on, so fill out this form, whatever prescribed process they did. That obviously never occurred. You never said, hey, it's expiring, we never said, hey, come renew it. So in moving forward to address this, we'll obviously have to just bring you back in, see if we are gonna have this permit renewed, post-dated back to when it expired, or backdated, excuse me. And go from there, because obviously you have to have a special permit to have it there, unless it's in violation, so.
So just asking for you to work within the structure that's there.
Okay.
All right?
Could do that.
see the other item under correspondence is, so the dock application fee structure, Al had put together a memo, which we all reviewed and revised, and then it was submitted to the town board. So I don't know, I guess this is a good time to segue to the briefing by town board liaisons. And maybe you could tell us if you've had any discussions or if there's any feedback on that proposal for,
We have,
you haven't, but you
we're
have
waiting
it.
for the whole package. to go over.
Um,
Submission with the WMAC submits. With the revisions.
Oh, as far as looking at the fee structure for docks and the code changes, going to do it all at once?
I believe so.
Well, we were looking for feedback on that. So that we made sure that it was correct.
Well, the only
Yeah.
part that's, the only aspect.
One was
The only aspect of Al's proposal that's part of the code is the $10,000 limit on repairs. Every other aspect of that is just, there's a blanket statement in the code that just says that the town board will set fees.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so it's really independent. We're not going to change that part of the code as far as your, determining what fees, the town board's determining what fees are going to be. So, yeah.
We should look at it, we should put it on the agenda.
I think there's a lot of, good feedback in there as far as fees driving policy.
Next Tuesday.
So, it'd be good to know where you guys are on that.
Christina, can we put it on the work session agenda for next Tuesday?
Rose is cool.
So, you guys have any other town board liaisons, have anything else to brief us on?
No, tomorrow's the doc revisions on the agenda, Bill. Are you gonna be able to come in or if not?
What I'd like to do at the end of this evening is just tell you
Yeah,
where
no, that's
we're at
That's fine.
and save me a trip because it happens to be tax time and I'm overwhelmed, quite
No
frankly,
problem.
as is my assistant, so it's getting a little crazy. So we'll do that at the end. Bay Constable.
Couple things, Roy, not much, be quick. This other stuff has to do with things later on, so I'll just weigh in on that when it's appropriate for the moorings. Sorry, I have no voice left. Just a little update on a couple of things. So March 1st, we went live with the boat storage permits to online moorings. We rolled that out at midnight, literally 12 o'clock at night on March 1st. That went live. I sent a notification out to all the email addresses that we had on file for people
I
who
received one of those.
previously bought, just notifying them. I sent that out about a week before, maybe a little less. It went live at midnight. At 12:04, I had emails from people because spots were already taken. But nonetheless, the rollout was, I would say, fairly successful. I know, Ben, you used the system, you got one. Hopefully it worked out pretty well for you. Tom, I haven't seen you yet, but.
I haven't had a chance to get on.
Right, so, overall, we're somewhere around like 170 permits that have been issued already.
Out of,
Last year we did like 325, right? So we're doing pretty good. There's been like, I would say maybe about a dozen issues ranging from people just didn't follow the instructions to software glitch that we didn't know would happen until we started doing it. Overall, we've been able to move through that fairly well. A couple of unhappy people here and there, but overall, the majority of people have done them online, paid online, and then we either make their stickers available at town hall for them to come pick up, or we send them to them based on what they chose during the application process. So fairly smooth, integration of all this stuff. So eventually, like Tom, your boat storage permit and your mooring permit and everything will all be under one Tom Fields. So, that's a good. Historically, John Needham, who isn't here today, always asked, wanted to know what was up with the, just kind of the numbers of moorings, right, as we're rolling through. And now's kind of a good time to examine that a little bit because we're now in phase two, well into phase two of the reduction from 3-year mooring permits to 1-year mooring permits that we started to roll out through attrition 2 years ago. So now we're in the second phase of that. So we've had people who renewed and got into the 1-year cycle and then now have renewed for another 1 year. We have people who are just joining and we have people next year who will be the last to join. Overall, going fairly well, I think, from the administrative side. People's opinions on it, I don't monitor, but overall, seems like it's working pretty well. Just to put some things in perspective, because there was some concern that there would be a uptick in cancellations as a result of this switch to 1 year, right? The roughly threefold increase that then translated to. As of right now, we have 718 moorings that are approved and 54 that are in some process of approval, right? So they can be renewed, but they haven't been yet, or they've been renewed, but they haven't been approved yet. Like we haven't reviewed them, right? So that's we'll call that 780, somewhere right in there. As of the end of March 31st last year, just to try and put some bookends on things, we had 825 approved, okay? As of right now, which is just a few days after the March 31st expiration for many people now, we have 67 permits that are currently expired. Some of them have been expired for a long time, some of them just expired on midnight on the 31st, 2 expired today. So if you combine those two numbers, or all those numbers, you really wind up with like 772 or so that are approved in some process of approval or expired, but most likely go into renew, right? Like, because we usually hang out around between 15 and 25 in the expired category. So that leads me to believe that the overwhelming majority of the 67 expired permits are in some form of clerical delay, right? They don't know that they expired, they didn't get their notice for some reason, something like that. So hopefully we'll move that number back into the lower digits for expired status and move forward. Arguably, more importantly, is the number that have canceled, right? The ones that have said, I don't want this anymore for one reason or another, right? Because expired doesn't mean you don't want it, it just means you don't know what's going on. We had at the end of March of last year, we had 480 in some form of canceled status. As of right now, we have 509. So it's 29 more permits overall are in some canceled status based on, compared to last year. Some of that undoubtedly is people are saying, I'm giving it up, right? Like, I don't want it. I don't want to pay for it. Some of them are people who I don't want it because I don't live here anymore. Some of them are people who died. Some of them are people who are expired or were expired and said, yeah, I'm not going to renew it. So there's a whole sort of matrix of things that's happening. The short version of this is I don't see anything jumping out just yet that would indicate that has been causing a mass exodus, right? That the change is causing a mass exodus. If that 67 number, when we start reaching out to all of them and the ones that are expired, if that starts coming back to us saying, no, I'm not renewing, I'm still here, I still have a boat, but I don't want both of my moorings anymore, then maybe that would be a little more indicative of what's going on. But as of right this second, none of those numbers, in light of all of the moving parts, are particularly surprising to me as of right now. So Just a little update on that. Unfortunately, John's not here, because I finally actually did it. And he's-
We're
I-
interested too.
Yeah, I would like to, try to keep an eye and keep you guys filled in on the cancellation side of things. Like if that number is changing materially between meetings, then update that at a meeting. I don't think we need to go into the depth of all of those individual numbers overall. Like I said, cancellations is probably the most relevant to that concern. And then obviously, just longer term on the build out concept, the number is relatively stable as well for the number that are approved, right? We kind of top out at like 825 at any given time, and our low end is kind of in the 750 range. So and it seems to have stayed that way for quite some time. As we gain a lot, as we lose a lot, but that's where we're at kind of on the warrant thing. I was talking with Bill earlier today. It's really important that we get you guys at least somewhat familiar, if not hopefully proficient, in online moorings. More and more of that, our information is going there, right? We're trying to centralize all this information, so there's not different information available from different spots on different days and all that. Everybody uses the same information. A while ago, I had said, I believe everybody up here right now, login credentials for online moorings. If you guys don't have them or you haven't been on there, maybe look for them or I'll resend them, that's fine. I'm happy to work with every one of you, either as a group or individually. But we have to get you guys to the point where you can look at that and it'll answer a lot of questions that you wind up having about mooring, permitting and relocating and things like that. You'd be able to see it right in front of you, all of the information. Skylar, when you get your town email and get all that up and running, I'll bring you up to speed as well.
I've used it.
Yeah, right, so
Yeah.
you're good, but on the back end side for us.
I'm gonna need help with that because it never worked.
Right.
We tried a couple
Yeah,
of
I
times.
reset your password before, I'm guessing that we can
happened.
fix it, right? Yeah, we could definitely fix it. That's all I really have for brief. All of the aids navigation are in, except for buoy 5, so because we need to replace that. We're gonna be working on getting all of the no wake zones and anchorage buoys in, or up and running. It is springtime, summer season is here, boats are going in the water.
Regardless of the weather.
Right, one way or the other, summer's coming and it's boating season, so let's go 2024.
All right.
Are you gonna put in a construction buoy by the bridge? that
Yeah,
concrete
I
bridge?
I
talked,
was gonna say
I gotta
that.
look into that, I have to look into that a little bit more.
Show it?
What's that?
By the South Ferry,
Yeah, yeah.
and the South
Yeah,
Ferry
over
channel.
off of Ward's
Yeah.
Point there. And also, there's been a request to me, talked about loosely at a meeting like a year ago, to maybe see about getting an obstruction buoy on those rocks off of the Prigwin as well.
Well, yeah.
To, looking forward a little bit and trying to be a little more responsible for our thing.
You're talking about the old dock off
Yeah.
of Gars, old
Yeah.
place? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there was one.
There was a buoy
There was
Broke
one.
off.
Then
Broke off over the
Went away.
winter, so, this, like Billy, is my absolute go time, right? Because we're rotating boats in and out and doing all the aids navigation and trying to do all this stuff, so I'm a little bit cramped on time until just about the end of this month when we kind of crest. But after that, then I plan to look into those and some other sort of back burner stuff that we can hopefully knock off the list and get ready to go for prime time.
One other question, as far as moorings, how many areas have waiting lists?
So, yep, all of the gridded areas, right?
Right,
So WAWB,
right,
Deering Harbor, right?
okay,
Then Summer Beach Lagoon has waiting lists, right? Daniel Lord Road has waiting list.
generational.
Yeah, and County Creek Dock has a waiting list as well. Obviously not a mooring area, but a town.
Right.
There's no waiting list anywhere in Cockles Harbor. And that's it, right? So all those waiting lists now, with the exception of WNWB are not up because we actually had filled all of the people that were on the waiting list. And I have one or two applications coming in right now for that may have to go on the waiting list status, I'm not 100% sure yet. So they're not visible yet, because they don't have anybody on them, on the online mooring system. But Daniel Lord, Silver Beach Lagoon, Deering Harbor, they're all on there. Anybody can look at them, go on, ultimately, anybody will be able to go on there, look at them, see their position. We're gonna try to make it like a renewal process on that as well, so people have to update their own information to stay on the list. So that way we're not just maintaining this database of people that are dead, which does happen. So we're moving in that direction. Most of them are up there and visible because they have people on them already. But those are the areas that currently have waiting lists, right? So if there was another waterway that either got congested or was ultimately gridded, then we would probably wind up having waiting lists for those areas.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bo. Let's see, so my briefing, let's see, after the last meeting, we had gone over a number of sections. There was some feedback from all you guys. I then made some changes to those sections and distributed those and asked for any comments. The only one I got was, looks good to me. Thanks, Tom. I'm just going to move forward and assume that, what we got there, and you'll all see a final version anyway, but I mean, so just so we can keep moving forward, what's behind us has been addressed and keep going. We'll have a final version, and because there might be some tweaks to some sections, anyway, like definitions or something like that might get tweaked. Also, last time I brought up a request to change vote by Richard Sesti. I first received this from the town clerk's office on the 6th of March as she passed along. It was a request from Mr. Sesti that he has a 23-footer and wanted to move it up to a 26-footer at his stake mooring pulley at the mouth of the lagoon. I responded to her in the same way that John Needham, I later learned, responded 3 years earlier.
It was interesting to see that.
Yeah. When John was asked if he could Mr. Sesti could put a 27-foot boat there instead of 23, John said no. He put a memo to the file that he spoke to Mr. Sesti and to Dottie, and they agreed that the maximum boat that could go there would be a 25-foot boat. There was no paperwork or anything else done after that point. We've never received an application or an updated application from Mr. Sesti on it. That was 3 years ago. As it turns out, a new boat was put there. And we now have this request to increase it from the 23 to 26-foot boat. But as it turns out, the boat that's there is actually a 27-foot, 4-inch boat, which has been there for 2 years. We still have not received an application from Mr. Sesti for the larger boat. And I guess we will just address it when we ultimately get that application. The good news is that the bigger boat's been there, and I haven't seen it as a problem, other than the fact that it looks like, I think it's on the beach at low tide, right, Al?
I'll tell you, the old boat was on the beach a lot. The new boat, I really haven't seen on the beach.
Oh, okay.
I thought when I spoke to him, he said the boat was 26 feet.
It's a 268, and the 268 is a 27-foot, 4-inch boat, according to Pursuit.
Okay.
I mean, that's their specs on the boat.
Oh, it really hasn't been a problem.
No, it hasn't navigationally. It has not been a problem. if that mooring cannot be moved out any further. I mean, when I thought it was a 23-foot boat that had been there, and when I saw that he wanted to increase it by 3 feet, I was like, no way, you could fit a 3-foot longer boat there. And that's why I said no. I've been vilified for that. But I mean, it's just, we will have to establish a limit for stake mooring and pulleys. There is none in the mooring code, and that's just one of the many problems with the mooring code. But right now we're working on the dock code. So when we get done with that, we'll deal with the mooring code.
I agree with you that there should be, but I think in his case, that it's been in their family for over 50 years. And what he, you know what I mean? And the old boat, it literally disintegrated. He had to get rid of, he had to replace it.
Yeah. Well, it just would have been nice if,
The other big thing is the fact that people who are doing things and not applying for permits for them, that seems to be happening more often.
Right, I would point out that we do have, right, the correspondence back and forth between Mr. Sexty and the former chairman, right? So it was, at the time, I've talked to both of them about the whole thing, and so it seems to me like really, yet again, this fell apart on our end more than anything, right? The town clerk at the time, something didn't get transferred back and forth from WMAC to town clerk's office to the applicant and back. So this is really something, again, another little thing for us to think about procedurally. What are the steps for when somebody wants to change a vote, right? We've been doing this, we've been playing with this for the past 2 weeks straight, Bill and I, back and forth and around and around and around. And there really isn't a good, clear explanation for how that gets handled. When does it come back to the full committee and all of that? So with Ceci's application, he did make an application. There was conversation. This vote is bigger than what the conversation led people to believe. But there was no follow-up on the town's part at all. So we need to obviously get him into a compliant state, much like with the special permit situation, right? First and foremost, we gotta get everybody into a compliant state, and then we need to put things in place, procedures, policy, whatever it happens to be, that we know how to follow the next time this comes up for the next step. So that way we don't get in these situations.
Shouldn't it be incumbent on the person who's trying to make the change to be in compliance? I mean, they're the one, it's their specific vote, they're paying attention to that specific instance. They know most of that situation.
Sure.
They know how big their boat is, what their permit is for. If they're not in compliance, they're not.
Well, there was I don't think there was a limit.
There is no limit.
There wasn't a limit.
Oh, but there was no.
There was a limit for that.
But there was a conversation, I think, he had a conversation with John, and I think the way the code is, you have to just alert the town if you change your boat on your private mooring or stake mooring and pulley.
That's the code.
You're
That's the code is,
You're required to submit an updated application. And according to John, that's the way the code reads. And according to John, he advised Mr. Sesty to submit an updated application identifying the new boat with a picture of the boat and a copy of the registration. That's what the code states. And that's what John says he told Sesty. Nothing was done. So I don't see it as the clerk's office falling down on this. I see it as Mr. Sesty falling down on it. Nevertheless, it's not 100% clear. The boat's there. We're going to deal with it. In general, away from Mr. Sesty's situation, it needs to be tightened up. It's the process is not great. So it's got to be straightened out. There's so many hands involved. Bo and the town clerk and I are going to get on it, and I think one of the maybe new committee members be involved. Somebody who knows online moorings and maybe manages a bunch of moorings. I don't know, but yeah, it's got to be cleaned up, and this is it's frustrating, it's annoying. And we have some correspondence, but whatever, we'll deal with it when and if we finally get an application, otherwise he'll just be in violation, so.
Mr. Sesti's here.
Yeah.
Well, he needs to submit an application, he's been
Well,
notified of that.
I thought I did submit an application. I submitted it to the clerk. Is there an additional application that I need? I submitted and she said you need a photo and the registration. Is that not the application?
Well, there's a document that has to be completed as well, that's the application
An
form.
additional one
And it,
to
There's
the
only
renewal of the, I mean, so did the clerk attach that for me to know that I need to fill out an additional application? So the mooring came up for renewal. She asked me to send a photo, the registration. Is there an additional document that needs completion? And
It's-
I just want to just step back a second. When I went and purchased my boat, it was not my intention to, I specifically looked for a 26-foot or smaller boat. The fact that the Pursuit, which is a 26.8, is 27 feet, I just discovered upon when I got my registration, so I apologize for that. It's not my plan to be deceitful. My question to you, to the team is there an additional form I need to fill out?
she should have provided you with the form. Yes, there is a form.
Okay, so there's
We
two
did get it.
forms. There's mooring renewal and an application for the new boat. That's correct. There's two forms.
Wow.
We don't have a process for it. We don't know.
There's just one application for the mooring, pull line, it's all.
Yeah.
Right, so so she should have all the information.
Okay, she did not forward that to me.
Okay,
All I got was the photo of the boat, the registration, and your bill of sale.
right. But
So,
okay, so there's, so I completed the mooring renewal permit, that
Okay.
form. I'm just curious to, I like to bring this to closure before,
we will get it brought to closure. If you submitted form, I didn't see it, she may have it, we'll straighten it out and follow up on it.
Okay, so thank you. I mean, again, listen, if we go by code, 90-9A, the vessel should be in danger and safe, should not be in danger or unsafe for anyone. And the 2 years has proved that I've been compliant to that code. So, and in my conversation with Bo regarding that, if there was any complaints or any navigational hazards while the boat has been there, and he said there's been no such issue there at the end of the lagoon.
Yeah, no, I stated there's been no problems. I travel up and down. I have two boats in the lagoon. I have not had an issue with your boat. I thought it was a 23-foot boat. It's just
Okay.
it's not in
so-
compliance, but we'll get it straightened out.
Okay, well, so how do I bring this to closure and get my renewal permit and get my boat out there? Do I need to reach back to the clerk to see if she's missing any documents? I'm just trying to bring resolution to this tedious process here.
Bo has offered to follow up with the clerk's office, and he will, if there's anything more that's required, he'll let you know.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time. I appreciate you allowing me to speak.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Sesty.
Bye.
Let's see. Well, the next item was to discuss the problems with the mooring procedure, but I think we covered that. We covered that. Oh my God. All right. So on to, let's see. We've got new business. Got a couple of mooring applications. One is Coles. This looks pretty straightforward. This is for
Hopefully of some sort.
This is a new location, right?
yeah, this is a new,
You have a warrant for
Who asked that question? Oh, did he have a mooring before?
Yeah.
Well, normally we would be apprised if this was his second or third. I am not aware of any other mooring that he has.
He's a waterfront property owner, and it's a private mooring he's applying for.
So that would mean that he's probably got a riparian already? Or perhaps the box was checked.
For long.
And it does look like his anchor is really.
That's got to be the anchor on the bow of the boat. that he-
Yeah.
I mean, is it Michael Coles?
Michael or?
No.
Oh, sorry, Richard Cole.
Coles.
Oh, Richard.
Yeah, I thought this was, is this Michael's son?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it both, right? Okay.
It shows it's expired.
But that's the regulator that goes there, right? Right, yeah.
So there are two moorings. This is,
Well, Richard Coles, I know, has a regulator that's roughly, approximately in that location.
Oh.
I don't know him that well, but I know the boat, and I know that location.
That's his mooring, it's in front of his house, that's his mooring.
So that's,
so 28, this is
Yeah, it's a
Tackles
big
Harbor,
one,
yeah,
the
yeah.
regulator, yeah.
Right, okay.
so Christine, is that a riparian that he has?
It's listed as private.
So there's no issue with switching it.
Right, it's already private mooring.
And so that's 3322 is the one he has, and this one, do we have a pin showing where he wants to put this one?
Yeah.
Is that 4108?
Yep.
Yeah. This is,
Thank you.
pretty shallow up there, isn't it?
3518 or something.
It's closer, it's running along the shorelines where it gets really shallow, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's shallow.
not shallow right there.
That's pretty, that's got some water there, yeah.
Bring it a little to the.
Excuse me, it's a jet drive boat. It's not a prop,
Okay.
Okay,
if that makes a difference on the depth, Skylar.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Yeah, I mean, looks like a fine location to me. He's got room. What's the distance to 3626? What's the distance between the pin and?
Yeah,
It's a 36 foot?
90, so that's.
It's a 43 footer.
It's 43 footer.
That's clear.
You mean they could scooch it to the north maybe a little bit?
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know,
so it gets, I don't know how much change he's gonna have out, but when it starts blowing over there, it's swinging around.
should that be like more northeast? Or is that?
East or northwest.
Yeah,
Can you move that up a little bit to the northwest, to the left?
With the
Left.
hand.
Yeah, with the hand, like move the hand to the, yep, and further to the left, and then up a little bit, probably around there.
There,
Yep.
that looks good.
James, you want to read for records?
41.080291 degrees. And then 72.301335 west.
What was that again, James?
72.301335.
West Neck Mooring Services, is that Paul Brewer?
I don't know the kind.
That's Brewer, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Oh, it is?
Paul, it is Paul Brewer.
Yes.
And Bo, that'll be exactly where that's located when they drop it in the water, right?
Spot on. Contractors do a very good job of trying to get them where they're supposed to be. Well, they always do.
Yep. Al, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
James?
Good.
Matt? Good?
Yeah, I'm good, yeah.
I'm good. Mark? Still there?
Underwater, right?
It's gotta find them.
Mark?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay,
Absolutely.
there you go. 6-0. Okay, then we've got another application. Mian.
Ian,
Let's see.
it's by Daniel Lord.
Yeah, I'm not I know.
Like a Grady White or something.
Yeah, this one was, I'm not, he wants to go to West Neck Creek, but I'm not sure where he is currently. I couldn't,
It's in WA, Bill, he's, out by South Silver Beach Road.
And he wants to go up the creek? Okay.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
he's got a pin marking where he wants it to go.
So,
What kind of boat is this again here?
It's a Grady White, it's a 23-foot Grady White. And looks like he wants to go pretty far up in the corner by Daniel Lord Road.
I don't know whether there's much water right there.
Is that?
there's a bunch of moorings there.
Yeah, that spot might be full.
Bert's here, he's the one doing it.
Yeah, Bert, you have a mooring up in there.
I do, and so does 6 or 9 Manantic has one right there, and it's pretty shallow right there.
Yeah, up in that corner there. I used to have a pulley line over there.
That pin,
Is the pin up?
that's, I don't think 9 Manantic is showing.
The 9 is not showing right there.
It's not showing, that's where exactly where, oh yeah, there's no water up there.
No, there's no water there.
You have a hard time getting there with a.
In low tide, that would be a real issue there.
So this is
There's a
shelter.
missing mooring there, and his mooring is too shallow.
I mean, the reality of what's, laid down there is not showing up properly. And then there's 2 Gandy caliber moorings up there that Waterways placed in, so that's pretty full right there. That's all it is.
1074 and 1770, as they displayed right there, are, I believe, his 2 permitted.
And then there's Walter Richards.
Walter, there's a lot going on.
And there's, I don't
Skip's
think,
got a mooring there. So in the interest of time, can I make a suggestion or a recommendation?
Please do.
If it's all right, I'd like to reach out to him and then try to get a handle on what he's trying to do. And then I'll go do a site evaluation there to see if it can actually fit, or if there's room, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then come back to you guys.
That'd be great.
Recommend table, yes, so we can figure out exactly what.
That's our tax dollars at work.
It's all gonna get straightened out. It's all gonna be done virtually, like there won't even be any moorings, it'll just be on a screen.
Virtual boating.
All right, so we're gonna table that and Bo will,
Can you tell
Oh,
me that?
this, yeah, no, I just did before the meeting.
Then, the table, what is it, show facility?
thanks, Bo. All right, it's pretty much, there was some conversation about Radigan, but nothing's before us, so we'll wait until we possibly get something on Radigan. All right, so let's move on with chapter 53. So 53-2, if you read through it, I think it's just, there's some slight expansion of applicability and just some clarification. There's no major changes here. Environment basically is added as something that's within the public interest.
Why are we considering taking out recognizing riparian rights?
It's still there.
It's crossed out.
So it reads,
It's in blue.
It's replaced by
it's replaced by what riparian rights,
by adjacent upland owners for access to navigation.
which is a definition of riparian rights.
Say that again?
It's replaced by the language stating that and by adjacent upland owners for access to navigation, which is the definition of riparian rights, to have access to navigation. Anyone else have any comments on 53.2?
The other one, that question is how do you plan on regulating use?
Give it to me in.
So this the first sentence, this chapter shall regulate the use of town-owned docks, piers, wharves, bulkheads, the size, placement, and use of commercial and private docks.
That's what 53.7 and 53.8 are all about. The use of town-owned docks. There's all sorts of provisions in here that deal with the use of private and commercial docks. I mean, it's throughout the code.
Such as, are you looking to regulate like how people, how many days a year people use their docks? Is that where you're looking to go with this? Is that?
It's been, right?
That's what?
This has been in the code, right?
Well, it looks like a new word.
I mean, and use, but in the beginning it says the
The
use.
use of, right. And it's in there at the beginning. All right.
No, there's no secret thing going on here trying to, say you can only use your dock, 300 days a year or something like that. It's just, no, it's.
I remember hearing that. That's why that's once before.
Town-owned versus commercial/private. Use of town-owned versus.
Regulates the use of all the docks.
Yeah, basically, and that's the point of the code. 53.9. So, see I did answer this one question that I did raise here. So, the extension of utilities, including water, electric, and cable and telephone. What was in the code before was that it only specifically stated you had to get a building permit for extending utilities to an existing dock. It was not in here that you have to get a separate building permit when you build a new dock. So this is just to help clarify that, so that question can be struck that I raised there. Also, I just flipped it so that it just reads better if you have stating things in the affirmative as opposed to shall not do this. It's basically what you should do. So that's just basic drafting for things like this. I did change in 53(9)(a)(4). We changed it from 30% to 50% as far as the amount of remaining structure if it gets destroyed and whether you can rebuild it or not. I don't know where the 30% came from, but it seemed like that doesn't leave a lot of dock if you're going to rebuild.
The implication there, Bill, right, just so I understand that right, would be then less of a dock would have to be destroyed and you would have to apply for a permit sooner than if you had more dock destroyed, right? So if in theory would increase the number of permits that would be required potentially.
Yeah. Yes.
How is that determined? Sorry, that's like percentage wise, how do you do that? Like discretionary? Like.
Yeah. Oh, I
30
think.
and 50 is kind of huge. I mean, it's a substantial swing, but I was counting boards. Like, I mean, I'm saying that jokingly.
Well, no, I think.
Length, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's.
I mean, we lose all the decking on the dock, the whole structure's there. I would say the decking's kind of superficial, and replaceable where the structure's kind of more, the heart of the dock. But I'm just curious how that's going to be determined at all.
I don't, and I don't think it's ever come up
Okay.
since I've been on.
Well, I think it's either probably all gone or like kind of damaged.
Yeah.
Probably the middle is probably less likely.
Yeah, but it's a good point because structurally, I think if all the boards are knocked off
Yeah.
and all the pilings are still there and everything else is
Over
there,
there, it's fine.
I would say that's
Superficial.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
official.
Just curious,
No, but it's.
That should be defined, yeah.
Yeah, the more defined we can be, the less we're gonna have to deal with later on. So let me just mark that and see if I can come up with something. What else we got here? Under the same, just added the tax lot number should be included. That's been put in throughout, so we can identify the property more easily. The dated as far as the survey goes, so that we're not getting old surveys, we're getting more recent surveys.
That's tough to do.
Rather than accept an old survey.
To ask somebody to, to get a new survey just before.
Well, I mean, if there's a definite change, then obviously they should, but if there's nothing has changed on the property,
What's
then what's the point?
How do you know if anything's changed on the property if you don't have a survey?
Well, you look at the old survey and see if anything's different.
Right, we do field inspections before people put in a dock, and you have.
I mean, a new survey could show the new thing, that shows on the
Right.
survey that he added on.
Right.
I think I'd rather trust the old survey. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
Well, to prove, are we proving that the dock is according to what was permitted initially? Is that what the survey is for?
Basically to show
Where
all-
everything is, so that you can.
all structures that are there. I mean, some of the old surveys don't have a lot of information that.
I'm not sure what.
I'm just thinking of the logistics of getting a survey. You don't get it, what I mean, and not only the cost, but the logistics of getting it within 12 months of doing the project.
You don't have to get a survey that shows where your well is and your septic tank and your garage is, but you should be able to get a modified survey that shows what's going on near the waterfront and the setbacks. That's would be a modified survey. It would be cost significantly less. It's a lot easier to get, and it would show what's going on.
Well, I mean, maybe just to say that any survey shall include what you need, what you want, you know, because you might have an old survey that includes all that.
Yeah, I mean, my survey at this point is 20 years old and nothing's changed. It would be absurd for me to have to get a new survey. That the building is
You know,
exactly.
if you have an old Van Tile survey that has like dock,
Right.
you know,
That's
that
different.
might
That's
need to be upgraded.
I guess the question is, what would trigger a new survey?
Yeah, I mean, you would want to have certain information, setbacks, length of the
Right.
dock, blah, blah, you know, whatever, you know, I mean, and if you don't have a survey like that, then you need to do what Mark said.
Are you saying you don't need a survey for like a repair? Or are you talking about a new dock altogether? You don't think?
I'm not saying you don't need a survey. I'm saying that you don't need a survey that was done within 12 months. You need a survey that accurately describes what's on the property.
For the,
For a
For a
new
new-
dock.
for a new dock.
For a new dock.
For a new dock or
for
any
alteration
of it,
or-
any of it.
Operation.
You know, surveys, the life of a survey is way over a year. I mean, it's, you know, it's until you make another change that triggers a permit.
but isn't this all about making a change?
Well, yeah, and you're asking for a survey.
Right. So that.
And maybe you want a survey after it's completed, like an
An as-built
as-built?
survey.
You might want to do that, but to do a survey before and not let them use what they had, you know, I mean, doesn't.
Well, the plan for the work, which is not an actual survey, would depict what
What's going to be.
it's gonna change, you know? And usually that's done on a site plan. You know, the survey then, you know, sort of just says, you know, confirms that, okay, this is what he built. You gave him a permit to do what the plan said, and the survey says this is what he did.
So like an engineer's site plan.
Well, and whoever designs whatever's going, whatever they're asking this committee for, or the town for, would be incorporated in the engineer's plan or the architect's plan or whatever it is, dock builder's plan. And, you know, they would need a survey to accompany that to show that, you know, to prove that, let's say that the dock is conforming as it, you know, as it relates to setbacks and whatever.
Right.
And if you don't have that information on your existing survey, you would have to do what Mark says and get an upgraded survey. But I think we need to spell out what are the things we want to see on that survey, you know, so that, you know, you don't have to get another survey and then get it, then again amended after the work is done. There's no sense making them spend more money than they have to.
Ran into an issue with Ram's Head Inn with an existing survey.
It was the hydronic survey, I think.
No, where they drew the dock in on an older survey. I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, that's,
But you gotta do site evaluations, right? For
Right.
proposed work.
Right.
So what if the trigger, hypothetical trigger for some sort of updated site plan or survey, depending on how deep you want to go, was if the information presented to you, maybe it's a 20-year-old survey like Al has, conflicts with what is visually there when you do the survey, when you do the site evaluation. And then that becomes the watershed for, okay, wait a second, time out. Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, this survey here says of your dock that you don't have a float. We can't find a permit for a float, but now when we go and look at it, you see a float. What's going on here? Now we need to figure out what you're supposed to have, figure out what you actually do have, before you can figure out what we're gonna let you do.
We had
And that's one good reason for using the old survey. Because the
Perhaps.
new survey would show the float.
Right.
That had-
And arguably,
that happened
if you
recently in
let the
Copper.
survey, they would have the new float in there, because they're not gonna know whether it was supposed to be there or
Right.
not.
That's,
On the survey.
that actually happened recently.
Yes.
So the same exact scenario.
And the South Fair Channel as well. Because they have another application for that.
Okay.
I think we just need to say what we want.
Yep.
Bill, is there a way that the petitioner could fill out an affidavit that said that nothing has been changed since the past survey? There have been no variances requested at the zoning board, and this is a true and accurate survey as to what the property is? Or
And-
is
and-
that
You're
Is that a
submitting it
stretch?
as a part of the application, you're implying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and plus, if I was gonna sign that, I would put on the end, to the best of my knowledge. And, so then we're relying, I forgot, so I think it's best that we do a site inspection, and when we get real-time information, then it just, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I withdraw what I said, because someone could buy a property and not know that the previous owner had built on and gotten variances and things like that. So I do think there needs to be some kind of checks on this.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So, and on the, as it's read, showing the property, exact proposed docs and exhibit mistakes. Trying to clarify the staking required.
Yeah.
Where stakes should actually be placed.
Two things you mentioned in there, you're going from 10-foot to 5-foot intervals, which isn't really kind of standard. The 10-foot is.
I looked at 10 different dock applications
Mhm.
with hydrographic surveys, and they were all 5 feet. Every one of them.
The DEC asked for 10-foot.
I know that's where the language came from originally, but what they provide us with is 5 foot. And when you think about
Well, that's Fox is,
10 foot's fair amount.
Fox has got the equipment to do that, and he's doing it, which is great. But do you need to mandate that if the DEC
well, if
says?
you have a shorter dock, 10 feet doesn't give you, I mean, we're a lot of times figuring out the length of a dock down to much less than 10-foot intervals.
Yeah.
Especially in tight areas inside. So we really need 5 feet is almost too much in some places. And he actually gives us less than 5 feet in some. So it's,
Right. And the other one, you have as determined by a licensed surveyor, and the DEC doesn't require that. And it's going to add to expenses, even if, for the things that we do for the town, because we have.
Well, is like a guy like Fox licensed?
Fox is a licensed surveyor, but I think he's the only game in town. But we've used, like to do the bulkheads that were repaired throughout the town-owned bulkheads that we've repaired. We've used the harbor masters to do this. It's saving the town a few $1,000.
I looked up hydrographic surveyors. There's one in Montauk, there's a number of them.
Fox is the only one that you've ever seen here.
It's the only one I've ever seen here, but all the other guys are licensed surveyors. And they do hydrographic surveys. So
I think it would, depending on a survey from somebody, it should be somebody who's licensed.
yeah, I mean,
That
so
should-
Joe Blow goes out there with his depth finder. I mean,
Yeah,
you have to have some licensing or some qualification. How else are you going to qualify him?
You know, otherwise anybody can just.
These
All we did was time.
right.
They're perfectly, we went out with a piece of PVC pipe with 6-inch intervals all the way up to 12 feet. And Al laid out a grid that we're, needed to follow. So we went and took samples at every one of those locations. And I'm not saying that it's qualified by any stretch of the imagination. And I understand what you're getting at, but to Al's.
You have to set a standard, and
It's, and even what Fox does, it's a snapshot. It's a snapshot of the depth at that particular moment in time.
well, that's what it is, but they have, and that's what we were trying to figure out, and that's why I contacted a hydrographic surveyor, is to see how they relate that to the datum. Because it can't just be out of the blue. It's got to be the exact time on the tide.
And this was more specifically a town project, right?
Look, I think one of the things we've been trying to accomplish by going through all this is to establish a more professional criteria for what we're doing. And it seems like, not requiring these things being done by a certified professional is turning the clock back and is just
Counterproductive, yeah.
Yeah, and the majority of people will do things right. On occasion, I think we found where some people have taken shortcuts and sometimes provided misinformation and things like that, sometimes by accident, and perhaps sometimes occasionally on purpose. And that's why these people are licensed and their reputation is there and they're using the right equipment and they're putting the name on it and standing behind it. And I think if we want to be a professional committee, I think we should go in the direction of professionalism.
Personally, I don't think I've seen a private application come to us without some sort of, like Fox, for instance, being the guy. The town wanted to save a few bucks, so they're betting their own.
Right, yeah, I mean,
we have a fair amount of oversight if it's our own town doing the work, and we can rely on them.
I mean, so maybe just for
We have applicants coming in.
as opposed to municipal applications.
well, just how about for new docks,
I don't think it's a stretch to ask that a professional who's doing some work be certified.
I think that's.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I think that's necessary.
And then the last item is what we've been talking about as far as requiring that the applicant be basically residing at the location for a year immediately preceding the date of the application. So that's where that got put.
digital file containing geo-referenced version of such drawings, what is that? Are you looking for a PDF? What
That's
is
the
it?
tech guy.
I was just looking for that exactly. So basically something that, for instance, when we're here, we could put right up on the screen. And it would be geo-referenced to the map, so you could just actually show it right on the maps that we have here on online moorings, for instance.
How do you do that?
It's just basically taking what they do, the surveyors and the, and all the things have been submitted. They've actually been a digital file. They just don't submit that. They put it on paper and send it in. Send it in as a PDF, but it actually exists on their files as something that's geo-referenced, that actually has the lats and lawns of the individual locations on it.
And we have the software to do it. They have the software to do that? We have the software to do that?
I believe they have it, yeah. I mean, I know I've taken stuff that's been submitted in the past and geo-referenced it myself and put it on a map. But it's a pain, but I've done it. So
Yeah.
I think the committee should be able to do it, but it's basically if you submit it as opposed to, as a digital file with references in it, basically say, here's the map and here's where it exists, latitudes, longitudes. We can just take it and put it right up on the screen.
I don't know.
If they can't do that, then they shouldn't be in business. They should, how can you do the survey without actually having geo-referenced locations? That's the whole point of the document.
They could submit like a KMZ file or a shape file of some sort that you'd be able to open up in Google Docs and see exactly what's there. Right, it would be, okay.
Okay.
That pretty much covers 9. 12, just on existing docks, this, I had brought this up earlier on an application that we had. This just takes the requirement out for repairing a dock only. It removes the requirement that when repairing a dock, merely repairing a dock, that you have to reduce the nonconformity. So, if someone wants to replace the planks on their dock, they don't have to reduce the nonconformity. So I think that. And
What's that, Bill?
5312.
Well,
Okay.
It really stated that, whether you repaired it, altered it, or modified it, you had to reduce the nonconformity.
right.
And also change it to 50% there. So I'll have to come up with something probably would work in definitions as far as that goes. Think about that. 3 for 13. Basically, I don't think I changed. I think I just moved it. This was just moved. And again, 35 to 30% to 50%. That was the only change. And then everything you see crossed out there, you can see that's just what used to be 5313, which we covered once before. That was made a part of an almost identical provision in the code. 5318 on wetlands. So hopefully the wetlands code wetlands chapter 129 is going to be rewritten at some point. Basically, what in essence I added here was that not only that the method of access to the dock is included as part of the dock. So when we're looking at that, if it runs into the regulated area, which is the 100-foot from mean high water going upland, if it's running into wetland, if there are structures that are part of the dock that run into that area, that a wetlands permit would be required. And that they should get that permit prior to applying for a dock permit, because the way the wetlands code currently reads, and this could be changed later on, if you have a dock permit, you don't need a wetlands permit. So you come to us and get a dock permit, regardless of what you're doing to the wetlands, you then go, you then get to pass go on wetlands because you have a dock permit. So
Well, presumably every dock that you're gonna have, it's gonna be a wetlands.
It's gonna be within 100 feet of the.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get to it.
So it's most of them end just above mean high water. You run in and
That's the
you're,
ramp, the whole ramp thing.
Right.
This would cover this and make them get the wetlands permit before this application, so that the ramp that was used to access the dock.
if it requires dredging and fill and all this other, you have a hurdle that you have to go.
But we went through this whole thing not that long ago about the walkway and this and that. That needs to be spelled out a little bit better.
It's spelled out in the wetlands code.
The wetlands code is spelled out, right?
So they go to wetlands and they look at it and they determine whether it falls into that category or not. And they say, no, you do need a wetlands permit or you don't need a wetlands permit, but
Clancy's interpretation was that you didn't.
who's?
Stephen Clancy.
That you didn't.
You didn't need a wetlands permit for these access ramps and walkways.
Walkway.
Yeah, there's, and,
So there, I mean, there may be some,
that is based on the current wetlands code, which is a mess.
You know, what happened, there were three different situations. There was a walkway, a boardwalk, and a catwalk. And some said one, some said the other, and some said the third. And Attorney Kiley put it in as a walkway and not a catwalk or a boardwalk. And it was the only time that that was ever pulled up. So you just need one definition of what's going to happen between the end of the dock and the land.
right, and that presumably will happen with the wetlands code change.
I hope.
I mean, you would think that, you know, common sense prevailed, you would make it so that if a certain type of structure that accessed the dock wouldn't need a separate permit. If I were changing the wetland code.
Yeah, it is.
Common sense doesn't come in when you
The
have.
ability to use it here.
It would be nice, but when it's
Not like
just us,
PSE and G or.
when it's just us, it is, but when you're calling in a South Fork lawyer or someone like that to parse it and go in, you know, it becomes a little more complex. So the clearer what we write the first time makes it easier for everybody down the road.
Agreed.
And you may be able to cover your bases again by setting a fairly simple trigger type of mechanism.
Right.
Again, right, so for a dock application to be considered, you have to either have a wetlands permit or a letter of non-jurisdiction from our wetland authority.
Yep.
Something like that.
And that's,
Just like the DEC would do when they say, nope, that's outside the buffer zone, we're not touching.
You know, I mean, if it's something more than an access way, like there's a deck and a receiving area and whatever, I mean, if it's a giant thing, then you have to make a distinction between just pure access and some other construction.
I think for our purposes, that we're not reviewing it for wetlands at all. And so like, if wetlands is gonna have a review, and I guess they do, that should be their thing. We're just talking about docks. So they can do whatever they want about wetlands. We should just focus on docks. All right.
so, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it.
One of the items I didn't point out under 53-9 permit application was an item added that said a permit issued pursuant to, one of the things that has to accompany the application is a permit issued pursuant to chapter 29 if required. So. All right, it's 1819. Town imposed restrictions, so. I don't know, Matt probably rewrote most of this, but elements. Actually. Almost have to just. So 80% of it is basically the same language as a prior provision. It just specifies the items that the town should take into consideration when imposing their own restrictions beyond the code. So exposure to environmental elements, including but not limited to wind, wave action, surge, currents, tides, depth, property setbacks, shoreline protection, erosion, preservation, marine life, navigation, boat traffic, vessel size, public access, beaches, general recreation, fishing, shellfishing, swimming, and aesthetics.
That was the core, where like, the issue was before it's too vague. Giving some criteria for them to discuss whether they're going to approve or not approve or whatever.
Yeah.
Make it clear, these are the considerations.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even look at aesthetics on a building code, houses. And that's gonna be pretty subjective.
It is subjective, but I'd say it is, and it is the last item on the entire list. But I think it's something to consider along with all these other things. And again, this is, when the town board would be considering imposing, additional restrictions. So I think it would be pretty far out on the limb.
Aesthetics related not to the dock itself, but to where the dock is located. Because the aesthetics of a dock are sort of.
Yeah.
Some people, it's like the greatest thing they could see out their window. To others, it's a nightmare. Perfect. And that's why we are, that's why aesthetics is the last item mentioned, and why I have not, we really have not had aesthetics in mind looking at any of this. It is interesting that under the New York State coastal policies, aesthetics is a big item. It's there. If someone wants to argue it at some point in the future over something, but it certainly has to be a consideration, I think. But again, it's not an argument I'm prepared to try to make, to deny something over aesthetics, because there's just too many opinions from too many different directions.
Right.
One person's blah, blah, blah is another person's, right? So with that covered, there's 24, this is where we're at status-wise. So there's 24 sections in Chapter 53. 4 of them we're not going to touch because they really are, just items that legislative findings, enforcement, statutory authority, and the title. So those 4, they're 1 or 2 sentences apiece. Out of the remaining 20 sections, we've now covered 19. So there's 1 left. And we have to circle back to 53-8. Tom provided extensive comments about 53-8 with regards to town-owned docks. I've converted that into a code section, a revision. I'd really like to try to deal with that outside of a meeting, maybe through emails. I will distribute it once I clean it up. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit more. It's really all about the use of the dock at Grace's Lane, Dickerson Creek, for payment. And so I think a lot of it is going to be determined because it's where the police boat's also kept. So it's going to get a lot of input from the harbor master.
But there's probably more to it as well, because, right, like we don't just have Grace's Lane, we don't just have, the town dock, harbor. So our municipal owned infrastructure has grown since the code was written. And the code probably needs to reflect some broad regulations, not just very specific regulations for just one area.
Well, the way it's, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, but so the way it's laid out is there is the whole section on town-owned docks. And under that, there's all the different locations, which are you've got Deering Harbor, you've got Congdon Creek, and you've got now Grace's Lane. So Grace's
Daniel
Lane,
Daniel Lord.
Daniel Lord you got.
Yeah.
and Daniel Lord is, so the way it's laid out is, when it was drafted, there was Congdon Creek and Deering Harbor. Then there's additional regulations that were lobbed on later on. And under that, they put Daniel Lord and Dixon Creek. So Daniel Lord's pretty simply addressed, so I left that alone. But Dixon Creek now has gotten involved, so I've taken it out of additional regulations, moved it into, the primary section 53-7, dealing with all town-owned docks, what can be done there, when it can be done, who can do it, what kind of permits required. It's very detailed. What is there now under Congdon Creek and Deering Harbor are both very detailed as far as when, how, who, when. So that's the same thing I've developed for Grace's Lane with all of Tom's input and the other Bayman. So I think it's interesting. Other towns have gone into this type of detail on virtually every body of water they have. It's amazing. I'm trying to avoid that. But with the town-owned docks, given the uses and addressing recreation and the Bayman, it's clear that we need to go to that extent. I just don't know that, it's all the time periods and all different people using it and all different licenses required are beyond me. So it's something that needs to be looked at. Bert, you should look at this as well, because I don't know what impact it may have on the type of fishing you do, whether that's different than what is listed here. So pay attention, 53.7, 53.8.
There's also contractors use it, dock builders.
There was one line in there that I didn't include, and I was wondering.
What you thought about that?
So Tom had a one-liner that just said,
Yeah.
not to be used by dock builders. Did you have a time period or just?
No, my thought behind that was I was afraid that the area would, I don't want to use the word destroyed, but it may be negatively impacted by a dock builder coming in and loading pilings and stuff like that. That's what my thought was. A dock builder coming in and picking up a box of bolts, that's not a big deal. My thought was
Just don't make me make this thing so it's.
yeah, that's why
I can't pick up lumber.
That was my concern.
Bolts or? What size bolts?
Yeah, but my concern is that, the heavy, loading of pilings and stuff might not be a good idea there.
So we frequently exercise some law enforcement discretion when it comes to authorizing the otherwise unauthorized use of areas like that, right? Think of parking restrictions, right? There's times when you say, we're not enforcing that for the good of this particular thing,
Yep.
right? So the storms, particularly robust fishing years, changes in fishing systems, right? Those are all things that people have come to us and said, hey, can I keep X, Y, and Z here for some period of time to accommodate this? And we usually do that under like a fairly short period of time, right, where we can exercise some discretion with that. But maybe moving forward, so you don't have to get into the nuts and bolts and this, right? There could be a provision that would allow for the authorization, a special permit, if you will, to be issued by some authority, whether it's WMAC, town, I don't care who, it doesn't make a difference. But a provision that would sort of be an umbrella for all of those things that you can't think about, that might come up, there's good reason to have them, and you're never gonna legislate everything. Nor do you want to,
Mhm.
Please, dear Lord, don't do that. So just some food for thought, maybe there's a way, or as duly authorized by a permit issued by this body for whatever special circumstance happens. Just a thought.
Harbor master authorization.
I prefer to not be. I like it to stay, I'd like to stay in the exercising law enforcement discretion and not pushing the envelope into weeks and months type of thing, so.
And the other thing with Grace's Lane is now, there's a county park there.
Yeah, there is a county park
Or
there.
town, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Look at it as an all.
That is in fact a separate piece of property.
Right.
There is a property line.
Right, oh, absolutely,
County in town,
right,
joint venture.
right. Yeah, that can be used by the general public for docking, right? There's no problem. They can tie up there.
How do you
Okay.
answer that, Bo?
I,
What are you guys doing then?
we've never had that situation yet, but, if I was presented with that situation, I would, refer to the code and probably revert to the fact that those laws were written specifically for the bulkhead that existed there at the time that those were created. And the conditions and ownership of that property that's immediately to the north of that would probably not, in my opinion, be subject to those regulations. I may be told otherwise from a supervisor, but that would be my initial reading of it and say that, that's where I would draw a line at that property line and say, this is the town property at Grace's Lane with the bulkhead and this bulkhead, and it's fairly specific in that area. You could probably extrapolate that out reasonably. A reasonable person might write a ticket for violating if they were up north towards the old Dickerson property. And maybe that would hold up too. But I tend to be a little more forgiving in the initial first blush look at it.
Liberal,
Yes.
if that doesn't offend you.
While we're talking about things that you might want to look at too, I haven't heard it come up at all, other than in conversation. Tom's always been a big proponent of this. And just while we're talking about it, it's like some sort of, and I don't know what to do with it, but like review process over some given period of time. Because what we're finding more and more is that docks, as their owners get older, maybe they move away, or they're more seasonal than they've ever been, and they don't have quite the same financial status as they used to. Docks are getting forgotten about in a lot of these places. Floating docks, particularly in the tackle that holds them in place and all that, the maintenance and upkeep side of things. I don't think that we're gonna have a reminder in a 25-year interval to go look at Mr. Smith's dock that we approved a long time ago. But maybe in some sort of real estate transfer transaction, if there's a CO revision that would probably normally be done anyway as part of the transaction, that somebody in that process could verify that the dock is not causing a, right? Because the terms and conditions of your permit say that you're gonna follow all the things that are in the law, you're gonna follow all the things that we tell you you're gonna follow, and that it requires you to keep a dock in a condition that doesn't
You're gonna
present a
maintain it.
risk or has a.
We, this came up and we went over it. I don't know if I put it in there already or not, but I'll look at
the permit.
Well, your idea
Permit
was to make it
provision.
easier to maintain
Right.
Yeah,
through the fee structure.
It's part of the fee structure.
no, but as far as, God,
It is,
general
it's in there.
as far as upon sale, there would be a,
That's not in there.
yeah, that's, okay.
Compelling the owner or the new owner to fix deficiencies, right? Like if there was an as-built situation that led to some sort of, should have been a variance required situation, right? The piling's over the property line, We had this down in South Street Road, right?
Right.
And, you know, the dock wasn't built appropriately. Whenever it was built a long time ago, and it's just encroachment on public property. And.
It's not the piling, it's off of the,
Right,
yeah.
right to the
Yeah.
south.
Right.
It doesn't pose much of an issue, but it is an encroachment.
I found it irritating,
Right.
going out from my
It
room,
is a
needed to widen.
violation of the terms of their permit. And so, again, I'm not looking to punish anybody or anything, like, but if that's our window to fix things and get in ahead of them there being, you know, let's just make sure that it's all how it's supposed to be. If it's, everything's fine, you just check the box, everything's good, building inspector, us, you guys, whoever it is, check the box and say,
Septic system.
yes, move forward.
Good point.
I won't take up our time now looking for it, but it's in there someplace.
We would never allow property to transfer if there were building department violations outstanding. That's all I'm looking at. Or if it was, if there's going to be a hazard to the public associated.
Okay. Yep, no, it's a good point.
If there's an inspection done at the time, I mean, in some cash deals, you might not have that.
Right, and there's, again, there's always something that comes through, right? But we always know about a deed transfer eventually. The town always finds out about it eventually, right? It gets filed with us, we.
Right.
So again, and maybe that's an after the fact thing, like, it's only if there's a CO inspection related to the transfer. Maybe that's what, I don't know.
Maybe you just make a new thing that you have to have a CO inspection.
Well, that's another,
I mean,
other people's codes.
right.
Just a thought, that's all.
There's a lot of things that people are thinking about, not just about this, but other things that they're thinking about a triggering of deed transfer
Right,
and what that, you know, to try and get other things
right.
right.
Yeah, I think it's in there already, but I will look. It's definitely a good point, and it's something that should be done. The only other thing that I attached was that observation sheet that it's all completed. Did we get a copy?
I didn't get a copy of that.
It's not in our.
An email, wasn't it?
I saw the email, yeah.
Okay, so there wasn't copies made. So it's basically just a compilation of what we had. I'll send it out before the next meeting.
It was sent out, but
It was sent out.
Yeah, I didn't realize it.
I have to make myself a copy. I think that's it for what I wanted to cover tonight. I sent you a text. You had other fee comments. Do you want to bring them up at another time, or?
No, I responded. I said I didn't want, I didn't.
You weren't ready?
Interested.
All
I can take a look.
right. Anybody else have anything else? Motion to discuss. Did you guys get what I said down enough to inform?
Yeah, it's really just the last section.
Yes. All right.
Bert, that's something?
Can I come and say something?
How much time are you gonna take? You got 3 minutes.
Tomorrow, I'm in the role, you know, not a role, but, couple of things, so, Sag Harbor, their outer mooring, outside their breakwater, they have gone to a permit system and they capped it at 67 and they filled all those moorings. They have those permits completely full. So in that outer grid, which is hundreds of acres, so there's plenty of room, but the residents in that area forced the hand of the village board and they capped that. So they have, I think, you might see some pressure coming up from Sag Harbor on some of these larger boats. So that can't get a mooring. You'll see some 150s that didn't get in, that might start.
So they're not letting them anchor in that area anymore?
Not gonna let them anchor. It's a designated.
Morrisfield.
But they do have designated, they are creating, well, actually, I don't think they actually created it. They're still revising their code, but they are trying to create anchorage areas that are even gonna be further out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they're gonna, yeah.
But anyway, they got special permission from the state,
Didn't they,
which is
Graham-
beyond 1,500 feet.
yeah, didn't they go out extra? They got permission?
They're over 4,000 feet.
They're over 4,000.
4,000. So,
Something that,
and as what Ben was saying about oyster, areas and where they are, I'm not, there was a 10-year review, and the county spent like 2.5 years drawing up new proposals. They took out a lot of sites. There is one site that is probably controversial, right? And it is because of that it was actually leased out while they were doing the 10-year review. They couldn't remove it from the system when they re-evaluated and did the 10-year review. So they removed a lot of the sites that are going down Mashonack. I think there's about 4 there and maybe 2 by Majors Harbor. They removed probably about 6 or 8, but there's one left, lease 797, that's in the middle of Smith's
the one-
Cove.
Oh, in the middle of, because there's one right outside the mouth of Major's Cove.
Well, there's,
That was John.
okay, there's like one there, but I don't think, I think that even the guy dropped that.
That would
I don't even
be
think
good,
that's
because that
on
one was a nightmare.
Dropped it.
Okay.
But there's one right in the middle of Smith's Cove. And I want it. No, I'm just kidding. I would take it. I mean, it is a great spot for, its protection. But I'm sensitive to, the town. And so 2 things. I think the town should be aware of it. And the other idea is to follow what Sag Harbor did and petition the state and try to get jurisdiction from South Ferry all the way across, I guess, so it's that Split Rock over there.
I think that's a very
And then
good
take
idea.
over and get jurisdiction for all of Smith's Cove. Or, do what Sag Harbor did for numerous reasons,
And fill
Being able
it,
to-
and make it a mooring field?
No, not making.
No, just
make it so you can control.
To regulate.
Oh, to regulate it, yeah.
Have the
Yeah, yeah.
control.
I think that's a very good idea.
So there's one thing of,
I think it should go, from South Ferry to the mouth of, the southernmost mouth of Major's Cove, Major's Harbor. I mean, that,
good luck with that. I mean, great. I mean, if that's the case, but as I said, there is a mechanism to petition the state to increase your jurisdiction
I think that's
whatever you want.
researched, yeah.
and to follow Sag Harbor's lead, because you're gonna see more pressure, coming up when those boats are.
oh, it's
And if
unbelievable
you
out
don't
there.
want to, I'll take that spot. So the other part of what I want to say is that, farming oysters is fairly new to the, traditions of East End kind of fishing, et cetera. So not everything is set as far as like a standard of way of doing things. Like, pound traps, they've been doing that for, since the Indians or whatever, or can you say Indians? Native Americans. And, there's other fishermen who put out pots, et cetera. Oyster farming, and now the county is actually considering helping us to raise kelp, which is another, if you have a lease, you could be able to raise kelp in the winter, which adds oxygen to the water, and I don't know if it grows, it'll be.
Is that how, since kelp is a season, is that a seasonal thing? I wasn't sure what
It is, I think it's in the colder water, so they.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, right, so there actually is a meeting tomorrow about it, that actually the state has to approve it to give, approval to the county so that they can allow us to do it, if we can. So anyway, so when you're adjusting, say, the mooring code, I don't know if you're going after it, there might be things to consider for oyster aquaculture to help us out. We, as a farmer here, appreciate what the town does as far as having access to different bulkheads, to pulley lines and moorings, helps it out. There's a lot of pressure on commercial waterfront all over the place, makes it very difficult and expensive to operate. So this town actually is pretty good just because of our multiple town landings and other facilities. So hopefully in the future, when you are looking at regulations, you'll know that there are other things to do with shellfishing or farming aquaculture. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, there's at least two of us have farmed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got, we're certainly sensitive to it. And I think it's great. I think it's really beneficial. But there is that balance. Who's got the field off of First Causeway?
Little Ram, yeah. So they're about, I think one corner of their farm would be about 1,500 feet because there's 1,000-foot barrier. And then there's like a 200 or 400-foot like zone around a farm. And then they would start. And they did apply for another lease in that area, like another adjacent to them. And then, I'm sorry?
This is the Gardner's Bay.
Gardner's Bay. So they applied for one there, they applied for one in Orient Harbor, and they applied for another one somewhere else. So I think I can show you on the map later.
And who is that?
Little Ram Oysters, they're in South Hall. And they work out of Albertsons. They have they have a little facility there.
It's like landmines over there.
You really think so? Because I go around the island a lot, and I think it's really inside.
It is inside.
And it's like it's 6 feet of water. I don't
There's
know.
only one of us who gets upset by it. It's me.
That's you?
I win. That's one of my favorite windsurf spots. It's a nightmare.
Gotcha. All right.
It's not, no one's ever going to do anything to help me out on that.
Yeah, I mean, and they take their stuff out in the winter. They move it.
Yeah, well, I'm not out there that much. The one off of Jessup's on the east side of Jessup.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. No.
I'll try to double it up over there. All right, thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
Bert.
Bert.
Anything else? Motion to get out of here?
Yep. Second.
All right, I can.
All right, thank you.